There's a moment every drinker reaches. A moment that feels small on the outside, but life-altering on the inside. It's the moment you ask yourself a question most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep reaching for a drink even when I promise myself I won't? Why does life feel harder without alcohol? Why does the urge appear out of nowhere like a reflex I never consciously chose? Most people think it's their character, or willpower, or personal failure. But the truth is far more uncomfortable and far more liberating. Alcohol rewires your brain. And very quickly, if you want instant access to a brand new video training that I've just finished showing you how to control alcohol in as little as 48 hours, then click the link in the description. This new method is not about using willpower therapy or AA meetings. It's totally different. I do not publish this video anywhere else online, and it's already changing thousands of lives. So click the link below for instant access. Once you're on the next page, enter your name and email address, and your free training will begin. It takes just 7 minutes to watch, but it'll feel like somebody flicks a switch in your brain. And honestly, I'm not sure when I'll start charging for this 7-minute video training. That's how good it is. But whilst it's still available, click the link below, enter your name and email address, and watch that video now. Literal rewiring, structural rewiring, chemical rewiring. It reshapes the circuits responsible for stress, emotion, motivation, memory, and pleasure. And it does it so slowly, so subtly, that most people never notice until they're deep inside the trap. They think they're choosing alcohol. But once you see how the brain adapts to ethanol, you realize something far simpler. You're not choosing alcohol anymore, alcohol is choosing for you. Today, I'm gonna walk you through the actual truth behind alcohol. Not the surface level, alcohol is bad cliches. Not the vague, drink responsibly mythology. I want you to see the exact mechanisms, the chemistry, the neural circuitry, the biological dominoes that make alcohol feel like relief, then necessity, then prison. Even if you're brilliant and disciplined in other areas of life, alcohol can hijack you just the same. Once you understand this, alcohol loses the illusion of mystery. It loses the illusion of benefit. And once the illusion collapses, the desire collapses with it. Let's start with the first and most important principle. Alcohol doesn't relax you, it disarms your brain. Your brain operates on a balance between two major forces that keep you feeling stable and sane. GABA, your neural brakes, the chemical that calms and slows things down, and glutamate, your neural accelerator, the chemical that excites and fires things up. You need both in the right measure. Without glutamate, you can't think sharply or focus. Your brain's engine won't rev when you need it. Without GABA, you can't relax or regulate your emotions. Your mind won't slow down when you hit the brakes. Alcohol smashes that balance. The moment alcohol enters your brain, it artificially boosts GABA. It's like dumping a sedative into your neurons. Everything slows, and you feel that wave of warmth, quiet, and calm wash over you. That moment feels like relaxation because your racing thoughts finally hush. But your brain isn't fooled. It doesn't like anything external pushing its chemistry out of whack, so it compensates fast. It senses an outside force, alcohol hitting the brakes. In response, your brain downregulates its own GABA activity, essentially weakening your natural relax mechanism, because the alcohol is doing that job. At the same time, it revs up glutamate to counteract alcohol's sedative effect. Your internal accelerator goes into overdrive to keep you functional. Now, think about what this means. With repeated drinking, you are teaching your brain that relaxation must come from alcohol, not from itself. Bit by bit, your emotional baseline shifts. Suddenly, you're unable to relax without a drink in hand. You're never truly calm without that external sedative. Your brain has outsourced its soothing to a toxin. It's like it handed over the keys to your peace of mind and said, here, you drive. And when the alcohol wears off, now you're stuck with too little GABA, your brakes have been sabotaged, and too much glutamate, your accelerator is jammed. In short, a nervous system in overdrive. You might notice the day after drinking that you feel jittery and on edge over the smallest things, and that you literally can't unwind in the evening unless you have another drink. That's the chemical imbalance screaming out. It's not that you suddenly became an anxious person. It's your brain stuck in a hyperactive state it never wanted. This isn't a personal failing or addiction in the classic sense, not yet. It's basic neuroadaptation. Your brain is adapting to the presence of alcohol by changing itself, and you are left with the side effects: tension, edginess, internal chaos. The uncomfortable irony is that alcohol creates the anxiety and stress that people think it relieves. It's a perfect trap. You feel stressed, so you drink and feel temporary relief. But that very act ensures more stress and instability later, which then triggers you to seek more relief by drinking again. That cycle, stress, drink relief, even more stress, is the bedrock of every drinking problem. It's not weakness, it's chemistry. Think of it like cutting the wires of a security alarm. You get silence right now, but you've left yourself defenseless and on high alert later. Dopamine, from pleasure to just stop the pain. In the early days, alcohol can light up the reward centers of your brain. It triggers the release of dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and reward. That first buzz, that first drink at a party, it comes with a flush of dopamine that says, hey, this is fun. Most people mistake that feeling as simple pleasure. But here's what's really happening. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure. It's about motivation and learning. It's your brain's teacher wiring you to remember and repeat what felt good. At first, when you drink, dopamine spikes after the alcohol hits, and your brain notes, this feels good, remember how this happened, so we can do it again. With repeated drinking though, a crucial shift occurred. The dopamine spike starts showing up before you even drink. In other words, the anticipation of alcohol, the sight of the bottle, the clink of ice, the end of a long workday, your usual drinking time, starts releasing dopamine. Your brain has learned what's coming and starts craving the relief in advance. It's classic Pavlovian conditioning, except instead of a bell making a dog drool, it might be Friday evening making you crave a drink. Why would mere anticipation trigger the reward chemical? Because your brain has learned that alcohol will fix the discomfort that alcohol created. Remember, your GABA is low and glutamate high when you're without alcohol. You're tense, on edge. Your brain now treats alcohol like the solution to that problem. Dopamine's job shifts from saying, that was nice after a drink, to go get the drink. Now, we need it before you've even taken a sip. It's no longer about pleasure, it's about relief. This is why, over time, first drink feels like life-saving magic, and the fifth drink feels like nothing. Early on, you drank to feel good. Later, you're drinking to stop feeling bad. Dopamine has been reassigned from creating enjoyment to creating compulsion. Neuroscientists describe this as the shift from liking to wanting. In addiction, the wanting, the craving, the drive grows and grows, while the actual liking, fun, pleasure shrinks. You reach a point where you're not drinking to get high or happy. You're drinking to get back to baseline, to feel normal, to quiet the nagging anxiety or desire that flares up when you don't drink. Think about how twisted that is. The substance that used to give you a mild euphoria now gives you mainly relief. It's not adding happiness, it's just subtracting unhappiness, which it caused in the first place. The dopamine feedback loop now screams at you not to attain pleasure, but to avoid pain. Drink, it says, not to have fun, but to take pain away. At that stage, alcohol isn't a treat, it's an obligation. At first, alcohol is the carrot luring you in. Later, it's the stick beating you just to keep you going. Allostasis, the brain's new normal equals dependence. Your brain loves stability. It works hard to keep everything in balance. A stable mood, stable energy, stable internal environment. We call this homeostasis. But when you force a repeated disruption, like regular alcohol use, your brain doesn't just bob back to the old normal. It creates a new normal to accommodate the disruption. This process is called allostasis, meaning stability through change. In simple terms, your brain recalibrates its baseline settings to account for alcohol. When booze becomes a daily or weekly fixture, your brain begins to treat alcohol as part of the expected environment. It's as if your thermostat has been reset to include the heat of alcohol so often that it now anticipates it. What changes with this recalibration? Pretty much everything in your emotional and physiological regulation. Your sleep patterns adjust. You may find you can't sleep properly without alcohol's knockout effect, even though that sleep is low quality. Your mood set point shifts downward. You might feel more meh or depressed when sober because your brain's reward system is dulled. Your stress response cranks up. Knowing alcohol will step in to relax you, your brain allows more stress hormones to flow when you're sober. Countless neural pathways rewire around alcohol's presence. Situations, times, emotions all become wired to drinking. Think of your brain like a thermostat set to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Alcohol comes in and effectively keeps blasting blasting heat into the system. In response, your brain, the thermostat, starts blasting the air conditioner to maintain balance. If alcohol heat comes every day, eventually the thermostat says, okay, let's reset to a new normal where this heat is expected. It might lower itself to say 60 degrees Fahrenheit just to compensate. Now, when you add alcohol heat, you reach 70 degrees Fahrenheit, feel K. But without alcohol, you're stuck at a chilly 60 degrees. You feel irritable, cold, off. In real terms, when you drink consistently, alcohol stops giving you a boost. It just brings you up to what now feels normal. And when you don't drink, you feel like garbage because your brain's baseline is now skewed. People will say, I feel fine when I drink, and I feel awful when I don't. Exactly. That means your brain's new equilibrium requires alcohol. Feeling okay while drinking and feeling off when sober isn't proof alcohol is beneficial. It's proof that alcohol has made itself indispensable to your now distorted sense of normalcy. Addiction researchers have a saying, at first, the drug is for pleasure. In the end, it's for relief. That is allostasis in action. Your brain has moved the goalposts. It's built alcohol into its operating schema. The tragedy is that this can happen so subtly that you don't realize it until you're deep in it. One day you're a social drinker. A few years later, you literally need a drink, feel like a functioning human being. It wasn't dramatic or obvious. Your brain quietly changed the baseline while you were busy living life. The longer and more regularly you drink, the more firmly this new set point holds. Skip alcohol for a day or two, and you don't just get craving, you feel genuinely unwell, emotionally, and even physically. That off feeling isn't you, it's not some innate defect. It's a clear sign that alcohol has forced an adjustment in your brain's system. The great irony is you often won't notice alcohol has done this to you until you try to stop. Only then do you experience the full weight of the imbalance. In short, alcohol slowly but surely redefines what normal is for your brain. It's not content with being an occasional guest. It rearranges the furniture of your mind and makes itself at home. This is dependence at the neurological level. Your brain on alcohol, recalibrated to a new world where booze is a regular player. Remove that player and the whole system feels like it's tilting. Your brain will adapt even to poison to maintain stability, but that new stability comes at the cost of your natural peace. The stress switch, why life feels harder without alcohol. One of alcohol's biggest selling points is stress relief. Have a tough day, drink a glass of wine, and you feel the stress melt away, right? In the moment, yes, alcohol, as we saw, boosts GABA and turns down the volume on brain activity, including in regions like the amygdala, your brain's fear and anxiety center. The amygdala is like your internal alarm bell, threats and stress. Alcohol basically puts a pillow over that alarm bell. Things that were causing you worry or anxiety suddenly seem distant. That's why people say alcohol takes the edge off or helps them unwind. Here's the dark side. When you do this regularly, your brain, in its adaptive wisdom, doesn't let your amygdala stay muffled. Instead, it starts turning up the gain on your anxiety circuitry. To compensate, the amygdala becomes hypersensitive in the absence of alcohol. It's as if your internal alarm system, having been smothered night after night, now goes into overdrive when it's uncovered. Your brain's stress chemicals like glutamate and adrenaline and stress hormones like CRF, cortisol, get amplified when you're sober. The result? Life without alcohol begins to feel more stressful than ever. Everyday challenges that a healthy mind could handle now feel overwhelming. Minor irritations make you want to jump out of your skin. That edge you were trying to take off comes back as a jagged cliff. Your resilience, your ability to roll with life's punches has been systematically weakened. Alcohol was doing the work, so your brain's natural stress response got lazy and then hyperactive. Take alcohol away and you're left with an amygdala that's like a hair trigger alarm and a stress response that's set to high. This is why people often feel the world is too much when they try to quit drinking. It's not that the world got harsher, it's that your brain's filter for the world, your stress system, got distorted. If you're a high-performing professional or a business owner, you might have noticed this creeping up on you. Situations at work that you used to handle in stride now send your anxiety through the roof if you haven't had a drink. Or you find your patience at home running thin, your mood constantly on edge. It's like the volume on all stress is turned way up all the time. So if you've ever taken a break from alcohol and suddenly thought, why do I feel worse? Why is everything making me upset or nervous? Know that it's not just you. It's not that you're inherently weak at coping. It's that alcohol secretly rewired your stress circuits to be dependent on it. Your brain is rebounding, and until it readjusts, life feels like sandpaper on raw nerves. Here's the vicious cycle. Amplified stress makes you reach for the bottle again. You conclude, see, I need alcohol to relax. I just can't cope without it. And in that moment, you're right, because alcohol engineered it that way. It created a problem and sold you the solution. It's a false cure. Every drink to calm down is like borrowing calm on credit. With interest, you'll pay for it with even more stress later. The more you use alcohol to mute stress, the more intolerable stress becomes when alcohol is absent. This is how people get stuck for years, convincing themselves alcohol is the only thing keeping them afloat, when in fact, it's the anchor dragging them down. Erosion of memory, motivation, and mental clarity. Beyond the immediate chemistry, alcohol physically changes your brain over time. Not in an overnight, obvious way, but slowly, like water eroding rock. It targets some of your most vital brain regions, the ones that make you, and wears them down bit by bit. Brain imaging studies show that heavy or long-term drinking causes shrinkage in key areas of the brain. Frontal lobes. This is your brain's command center, right behind your forehead, responsible for judgment, self-control, and planning. Chronic alcohol use literally shrinks the frontal lobes. The result? Weakened impulse control and muddled judgment. You start doing things you normally wouldn't do, saying things you normally wouldn't say. You can't think through problems with the same clarity, and sticking to long-term plans or goals gets harder. The very part of your brain that would help you say no to another drink is impaired by the last drink. Hippocampus. This is the memory and learning center of the brain. Alcohol makes the hippocampus smaller and less effective. You may notice you're more forgetful, whether it's forgetting conversations, misplacing things, or having fuzzy short-term memory. Learning new skills or absorbing new information becomes more difficult. It's tragically ironic. People often hope to quit alcohol by learning new coping skills or habits, but alcohol has been quietly damaging the exact brain region that helps form new habits and memories. Cerebellum. This area at the back of your brain handles coordination, balance, and some fine-tuning of thoughts. Long-term drinking degenerates the cerebellum. Ever seen a long-time drinker's shaky hands? That's the cerebellum suffering. Even if you're not at the stage of visible tremors, you might feel generally clumsier or off balance. Not just physically, but mentally. Tasks that require coordination, even coordinating ideas, feel tougher. These changes aren't dramatic at first. It's very subtle. Maybe you just feel a little more foggy in the morning. Maybe you're not as quick with problem solving as you used to be, or your creativity has dulled. Over years, that builds up. People often lament, I don't feel like myself anymore. They struggle to pinpoint why, but they know something in their cognitive world has dimmed. They might say, I keep making the same mistakes, or I've lost my motivation and drive. These are signs of alcohol's slow erosion of your neural circuits. It's not that life is getting duller. Your brain is literally losing processing power, plasticity. Alcohol is stealing your edge. Here's a startling fact. A massive 2022 study of over 36,000 adults found that even moderate drinking, as little as a drink or two per day, was associated with reductions in overall brain volume. In 50-year-olds, going from 1 drink to 2 drinks a day effectively aged the brain an extra 2 years. Heavier drinking was linked to even greater shrinkage, brains that looked a decade older than their actual age. In other words, alcohol can prematurely age your brain. Think about that. All your hard-earned experience and wisdom being undercut by accelerated brain aging. So if lately you felt less sharp, less you, and you're drinking regularly, it's very likely not a coincidence. Alcohol could be quietly siphoning away your mental assets, your memory, focus, your executive function. For a professional or business owner, that means you're operating with a handicap you might not even know you have. You're working at, say, 80% capacity when you could be at 100% because alcohol has been dragging you down in the background. The good news is that much of this damage is partially reversible once you stop drinking. More on that soon. But the first step is seeing it clearly. Alcohol is not just a harmless indulgence. It's actively chiseling away at your brain over time. The sooner you halt it, the sooner you can start reclaiming the parts of you that have been blunted. Imagine your mind as a high-performance engine. Alcohol is like sludge in that engine, gumming it up, reducing horsepower. Remove the sludge, and you can get that horsepower back. Acetaldehyde, the silent saboteur in your brain. Let's talk about a less famous character in the story, acetaldehyde. When you drink, your liver breaks ethanol, alcohol down into acetaldehyde. You experience acetaldehyde every time you've had a hangover. It's largely responsible for the headache, nausea, and overall misery. Acetaldehyde is 10 to 30 times more toxic than alcohol itself. It's essentially poison. Your body tries to quickly convert it to acetate, a harmless substance, using enzyme. But if you're drinking faster than you can process, acetaldehyde hangs around doing damage. Why does this matter for your brain and addiction? Because acetaldehyde doesn't just cause physical misery, it wreaks havoc on your brain's chemistry. In the brain, acetaldehyde can interact with neurotransmitters and proteins, forming weird new compounds. Scientists call them adducts that aren't supposed to be there. These can disrupt the way neurotransmitters function and even trigger pleasure pathways in abnormal ways. In fact, some researchers believe acetaldehyde can combine with dopamine to create morphine-like molecules inside your brain. Yes, you read that right. Your evening wine might be indirectly causing your brain to produce trace amounts of an opiate-like substance called THIQs. This theory could explain why some people get extra hooked. Their brains are literally getting opiate-type signals from these acetaldehyde byproducts. Whether or not thews are the smoking gun, one thing is clear. Acetaldehyde amplifies addiction. It leaves a trail of biochemical chaos. It increases oxidative stress in the brain, basically biochemical rust that damages cells. It can make nerves hyper-excitable. It triggers more of those stress neurotransmitters we discussed. In short, acetaldehyde is like a little demon whispering more to your brain, while also making you feel terrible. Alcohol gives you the short-term good feeling. Acetaldehyde ensures you'll crave that feeling again by making your baseline state miserable. Think of acetaldehyde as alcohol's partner in crime. The one who roughs you up after alcohol gives you the warm hug. When you start feeling shaky, nauseous, anxious the day after drinking, that's acetaldehyde's handiwork. And what fixes that feeling? Often, fortunately, another dose of alcohol. The hair of the dog. See the trap? A toxic byproduct of alcohol makes you feel bad, and alcohol temporarily makes you feel better at the cost of creating more of that toxin later. No amount of willpower can override a brain that's been chemically altered to crave something. It's critical to understand. If you feel compelled to drink, it's not because you're weak, it's because your brain and body have been chemically tricked. Acetaldehyde is one of those tricksters. It's quietly hacking your neurotransmitter, ensuring the relief from a drink is just a little more fleeting and the next craving is just a little more insistent. So the next time you think, why am I craving a drink when I logically don't want one? Remember that there are molecules at play beyond your conscious control. This isn't to give you an excuse, but to give you clarity. You're fighting biochemistry, not a moral failing. Once you remove the alcohol, and thus acetaldehyde, from the equation, those puppet strings tugging at your brain fall limp. The intense urges and inexplicable pulls can finally begin to fade when the chemical instigators are gone. It's much easier to win a game when you realize it was rigged, and then you decide to stop playing that game altogether. Habit loops, from a drink to an automatic reflex. Humans are creatures of habit, and alcohol, with its reliable, though deceptive rewards, quickly becomes a habit loop ingrained in your life. The loop usually goes like this. Cue, craving, routine, drink, reward. Cue, some trigger that your brain has learned to associate with drinking. It could be time-based, for example, 6 p.m. after work, emotional, feeling stressed, or even feeling happy and wanting to celebrate. Social, being at a party or bar, or environmental, that comfy chair on your porch where you always have a nightcap. Craving, the urge that hits once the cue appeared. It can be a mild tug or a powerful it. It's that thought, a drink would be great right about now. Routine, you pour the drink, you raise the glass, you sip. This is the actual action of drinking, the habit in motion. Reward, the temporary relief, pleasure you get. That moment from the GABA and dopamine. The easing of tension, the momentary mood lift. Your brain logs this as a reward. Do this enough times, and the cue alone can fire up your brain's expectation of reward. The habit loop becomes like a well-trodden path in your neural landscape. So well-trodden that your brain will sometimes execute it on autopilot. For example, you might find that you automatically turn into the liquor store on your drive home as soon as you pass that familiar intersection, before you've even consciously decided to. Or you have a stressful argument with your spouse, and later that evening you're halfway through a bottle before you even process that you felt triggered by the argument. Friday rolls around, and at 5 p.m., your arm might as well have a mind of its own, reaching for a beer because that's just what we do to kick off the weekend. These are habit loops running with minimal conscious input. Neurologically, what's happening is that through repetition, the drinking behavior has been transferred from your conscious brain to your subconscious habit. There's a region deep inside called dorsal striatum. No need to remember that, which is like the brain's habit center. It learns patterns and routines so that you don't have to think about them. Tying your shoes, driving the same route to work, typing on a keyboard. These all become second nature thanks to that habit circuitry. For a heavy drinker, drinking becomes second nature in exactly the same way. This is why sometimes the urge to drink feels like it comes out of nowhere or against your will. It actually kind of does. It comes from the lower parts of your brain kicking a pre-programmed routine into gear. The cool beer on a hot day, the wine with the Netflix show, the whiskey when you're feeling down. Those patterns are etched in there. Here's the empowering part. Habits can be reprogrammed. Your brain's plasticity, its ability to rewire, means that these neural pathways aren't permanent fixtures. They've been strengthened by repetition, yes, but if you stop traveling that path, it will weaken. If you create new paths, new evening routines, new stress relief habits, they will, over time, overshadow the old one. Just as you once maybe had a habit of drinking every evening, you can establish a habit of not drinking every evening, placing it with something healthier, exercise, tea, reading, quality time with family, anything. At first, it takes conscious effort. Each time you resist the old loop, practice a new one, you're literally rewiring your brain. It's not instantaneous or magical, it's biological and it's gradual, but it does happen. Millions have broken that loop. The key is to recognize those cues and have a plan for a different routine and reward when they hit. Over time, the urge attached to the cue fades because your brain learns a new pattern. When I'm stressed, I go for a walk and feel better, instead of I pour a drink and feel better. The first few times might feel unnatural, but trust that with repetition, it becomes your new autopilot. It's like paving over an old road and painting new lines on a new road. At first, you might veer toward the familiar path, but eventually, the new road comes the easy route. Why? Just stop drinking. Rarely works. By now, it's obvious that alcohol abuse isn't just a choice issue, it's a circuit issue. So when people, or that little voice in your head say, why don't you just stop? Just have some willpower. It completely misses the point. Telling someone to just stop an ingrained drinking habit is a bit like telling someone with a broken leg to just run a marathon. The very tools needed to comply, intact bones and muscles, or in this case, strong self-control circuits, have been compromised. Consider what you're up against when you try to simply use willpower to quit drinking. The rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, that should help you make good long-term decisions, has been put to sleep at crucial moments by alcohol. When a craving strikes, that region goes dim, especially in those with dependence. Your brain has essentially silenced your inner CEO and let the screaming interns run the show. Your stress and reward circuits are generating a sense of urgency and need that can overpower any quiet, logical thought. It's like an alarm blaring, "Drink now or else," in your mind, drowning out the calmer voice that says, "We probably shouldn't." The habit loop we just discussed firing automatically. The actions of getting a drink feel almost reflexive, happening faster than you can summon a conscious no. So simply saying, I should stop, is up against a whole army of subconscious processes that have been wired to keep you drinking. Even very strong-willed, disciplined people can get stuck in this trap, not because they're weak, but because biology is strong. Alcohol doesn't care if you're the CEO of a company or a Navy SEAL. If you expose your brain to enough of it for long enough, these changes happen without your permission. The way out, therefore, isn't an arm wrestling contest with your craving. It's not about white knuckling through life, gritting your teeth every time you pass a bar. The real way out is to fully understand and internalize what alcohol has done to you, to see the naked truth of it, because that understanding flips a switch in your perspective. Instead of thinking, I'm giving up something I enjoy, you start thinking, I'm freeing myself from something that was harming me. The power dynamic shifts. Have you ever pulled back the curtain on a magic trick and seen exactly how it's done? It stops seeming magical or alluring anymore, right? The trick is broken. Similarly, once you truly see that alcohol is not relieving your stress, but causing it, not enhancing your life, but diminishing it, the cravings lose a lot of their power. A craving is just a thought, a pang. When you stop believing that giving in will do anything good for you, that pang becomes easy to ride out. Now, this doesn't mean you'll feel instantly amazing or never have an urge. The brain circuits take time to fully revert and heal. The first days or weeks without alcohol can be challenging, partly due to withdrawal, partly due to facing life raw again. But when your mind is convinced, when you know in your core that you're better off without alcohol, the struggle changes. It's no longer, I want it, but I shouldn't. It becomes, I don't want it because I know exactly what it is. You've essentially removed the psychological reward, leaving only the biological urge, which will fade with time. When a craving strikes, instead of panicking or feeling torn, you can calmly say to yourself, this is just my brain doing an old trick. There's no real need here. It will pass. And you know what? It does. The urge is like a wave that swells and then recedes. Each time you let it pass, you weaken the connection further. If you've been blaming yourself for not having enough willpower, cut yourself some slack. You are dealing with a hijacked brain. The beautiful thing is, once you deprogram the lies alcohol is helping you, that you need it, etc., you're not fighting anymore. Quitting becomes less about force and more about insight. It's like finally solving a puzzle that's been confounding you. Once you see the solution, can't unsee it. You don't have to force the pieces to fit. They naturally fall into place. In essence, stopping drinking is not about fighting the alcohol. It's about understanding it to the point where it no longer fools you. It's about unbrainwashing yourself from years of cultural and chemical conditioning. Once that's done, it truly feels like waking up from a bad dream. You don't have to use willpower to not drink anymore. Then you have to use willpower to not drink bleach. When the illusion is gone, the desire goes with it. The brain heals faster than you'd think. After years or decades of drinking, it's natural to wonder, have I ruined my brain forever, or can it get better? The uplifting truth is that the brain is remarkably resilient. Once you take alcohol out of the equation, the healing begins almost immediately, and significant improvements happen in weeks and months, not decades. Here's roughly how the recovery timeline tends to go, based on research and the experiences of countless former drinkers. Within days, that seesaw of GABA and glutamate starts to level out. The crazy internal chatter and anxiety of the initial withdrawal begin to calm down. Many people report that by day 3 or so, a fog starts to lift from their mind. You might sleep poorly for a couple nights, but then real, deep sleep, the kind you probably haven't had in a long time, comes back. Waking up without alcohol in your system, you'll notice you're less shaky, less nauseous, and your heart isn't jackhammering as it might when you were hungover. It's not all better in 72 hours, but the free fall has stopped. The brain's emergency brake to counteract alcohol's effects is releasing. Within 2 to 4 weeks, your mood starts to improve significantly. Those stress circuits that were on high alert begin to dial down because they're not constantly being thrown off by alcohol's comings and going. You may notice you're thinking more clearly than you have in a while. Little things like remembering details or having creative ideas again. Physically, your energy picks up because your sleep cycle stabilizes. Alcohol seriously messes with restorative sleep. So now, finally, getting truly rested. A lot of people describe this period as when motivation returns. You suddenly have the drive to tackle projects, exercise, or engage socially in ways you had been too lethargic or apathetic to do before. This is your dopamine system, recovering its normal sensitivity. Activities that used to seem dull compared to the artificial buzz of booze start to be enjoyable again. Around 3 months, here is where major brain changes become visible on a scan. Studies have shown that after about 90 days of abstinence, the brain can measurably increase in volume. Literally, some of the shrinkage reverses. Your frontal lobes and hippocampus start to regrow tissue that was lost. Neural connections that were numbed or weakened fire up again. Subjectively, people often feel a dramatic shift somewhere around 2 to 3 months. Concentration sharpens, memory is much better, and that constant mental nag, the thought of drinking, the effort of resisting it fades away. You might realize you went a whole day or week without even thinking about alcohol, something that felt impossible in early sobriety. The new normal your brain had created with alcohol gets rewired back to the true normal. You feel genuinely happy on some days. Not every day is perfect, but you'll have moments of real joy and peace that are 100% natural, and it's incredible. 6 months and beyond. At the half-year mark and onward, the benefits just keep compounding. By 6 months, many people feeling better than they've felt in decades. If we scanned your brain, it might show that many regions have largely returned to the size and activity of a non-drinker's brain. Cognitive tests often show big improvements in memory, attention, problem solving compared to when you were drinking. Emotionally, you'll likely find a steady resilience. Stress comes and goes, but you handle it. Maybe with coping skills you've developed, maybe just because your brain chemistry is balanced and working for you now. Importantly, By this stage, cravings are vastly diminished or gone. You might get an odd thought of a drink once in a blue moon, but there's no emotional punch behind it. It's easily dismissed. Many people hit 6+ months and have a moment of epiphany. I don't miss it. I don't want it. I'm actually free. And here's something to really look forward to. As your brain heals, you get you back, the real you, not the dulled, irritable, foggy version that alcohol left you with. If you were a high achiever before, get ready, because with a clear mind, you're going to be unleashed. The energy and focus that used to get sapped by hangovers or obsession about drinking now go into your work, your passions, your family. You start to realize that quitting alcohol didn't take anything away from your life, gave you back the ability to fully engage with it. People around you will notice the change. They'll see the light in your eyes, the sharpness in your thinking, the calm confidence in your demeanor. You might even physically look younger. Better sleep, better hydration, and reduced inflammation have a way of doing that. In fact, many who quit long-term heavy drinking end up biologically younger. Blood pressure drops, liver improves, risk of a dozen diseases plummets. But those physical wins are just bonuses. The real victory is in your brain and mind. Recovery isn't always a straight line. There may be some rocky days, but overall, it's an upward trajectory. Every week that passes without alcohol, you're gaining ground that you lost. And often quicker than you'd expect, you'll hit that sweet spot where you think, why the hell did I ever drink? I feel amazing without it. That thought is the sound of the shackles falling off. It's the sound of freedom. Identity, stepping into the non-drinker you. The final shift is a psychological and almost spiritual one. It's when you no longer see yourself as someone trying to quit drinking. You simply see yourself as someone who doesn't drink, full stop. This is an identity shift, and it's absolutely powerful. Why does identity matter? Because our brains like to be consistent with who we believe we are. If you still subconsciously think you're a drinker or you're missing out on something by not drinking, you'll feel internal friction. But once you genuinely adopt the identity of a non-drinker, there's no willpower needed. It's just who you are, like how a vegetarian doesn't drool over a steak or a non-smoker doesn't yearn for a cigarette. This shift often comes naturally as a result of everything we've talked about. As you learn the truth about alcohol and experience life without it, you start to see alcohol the way you'd see a harmful drug, because it is. The allure vanishes. You stop romanticizing. You stop believing it ever did anything positive. You see it as the refined poison it always was. At that point, continuing not to drink isn't a chore. It's a no-brainer. You couldn't imagine going back to that prison. Psychologists sometimes call this identity-based change. Instead of focusing on the behavior, I have to not drink, you focus on being the kind of person you want to be. I am someone who doesn't poison myself with alcohol because I value my health, my mind, and my life. When that really clicks, your actions align effortlessly. You make decisions in line with your new identity without struggle. You're not sitting there every day saying, God, I wish I could drink, but I shouldn't. You're saying, thank goodness I don't drink. I don't want or need that garbage. Many people who have quit describe a specific moment or period where the shift became obvious. They wake up and realize that the thought of drinking has become downright unappealing, maybe even a bit repulsive, and it surprises them. They might say to a friend, I'm not a drinker anymore, with complete confidence. Not, I'm trying not to drink, or I'm in recovery, but I just don't drink. That's when you know it's really sunk in. The battle is over because the war was won in the mind. At this stage, you're not avoiding alcohol because you're scared of relapse or because you're using all your willpower. You're avoiding it because you genuinely have no interest in ever feeling that way or living that way again. You see, a bottle of booze for what it is, a bottle of something that would mess up your sleep, make you anxious, deplete your energy, maybe embarrass you in front of people, slowly ruin your health, and take you away from the present moment. In short, utterly not worth it. Just as you wouldn't be tempted to drink a bottle of bleach or gasoline, a bottle of ethanol holds no sway over you. This is true freedom. It's not a state of constant vigilance, fighting cravings. It's the absence of craving because your desire has evaporated. You're a non-drinker, not by force, but by choice, and by a deep understanding that your life is infinitely better this way. The truth that sets you free. Most people spend years thinking alcohol is their friend, their stress reliever, their social lubricant, their reward at the end of a hard day. They cling to it, even as it drags them down, because they believe some comforting lies about it. But now you've seen the truth behind the curtain. It was never you versus alcohol. It was alcohol versus your brain. And alcohol was rewiring your brain to make you want more alcohol. It's a parasite that creates the hunger it feeds on. Alcohol rewrote your neurotransmitters, flipped your stress switches, shrank your cognitive power, and chained itself to your habit. It made you feel inadequate and weak, when in reality, anyone's brain would adapt in the same way if given enough alcohol. There's no shame in having fallen into the trap. The trap is ingeniously effective. But there's immense power in recognizing that trap for what it is. Now that you do, you can step out of it. You can stop wasting mental energy on guilt and self-blame, and instead focus on healing and moving forward. Your brain is already hard at work repairing itself, regaining balance, regrowing cells, forging new pathways that don't include alcohol. Day by day, you're getting sharper, happier, and more authentically you. Imagine the compounding benefits of this freedom. Waking up every day, clear-headed, full of energy, being truly present with your family. They're getting the best version of you now, pouring your talents and focus into your business or career with newfound creativity and drive. No more lost evenings, no more hazy memories, no more pretending to enjoy something that deep down was hurting you. All that time and mental space that alcohol once occupied is now yours to invest in things that actually matter. In the end, freedom isn't just the absence of alcohol, it's the absence of desire for alcohol. It's when alcohol becomes irrelevant to you, when you finally see it as the thief of joy and time that it always was. That's a point where there's no tension, no fight inside you. You don't avoid alcohol, you simply have no interest in it, the way you have no interest in any other poison. You've outgrown it completely. And now, you can live the rest of your life with a clear mind and zero regrets about wasted time or potential. The dark truth about alcohol may have been uncomfortable to face, but it's also the truth that changes everything. Armed with it, you've reclaimed your brain, power, and your future. You've seen how the trap works, and you've walked out of it for good. Enjoy your freedom.